Hey Ed, how's it going?
Hey Ali, good to see you again.
Yeah,
Back here.
It's awesome. So this is our second episode of Ed and Ali Show, everyone. My name is Ali, as you just heard. I'm head of Solace Cloud. Ed?
Yeah, I'm Ed. I am the head of the core product development team.
Yeah, and we are here together. In case you haven't seen the first episode, I suggest you go check it out. Sets the context on, what is this all about. But just shortly, Ed and I are going to come to you probably every few months and share some stuff that we're working on with our teams and kind of give you a bit of a forward-looking view of what you can expect from Solace. So that's the context of the show. I'll also give you a bit of a context about Solace and what we do in case you haven't seen the first episode. But again, if you go there, you'll get more context. So Solace is in event-driven architecture. We basically use event-driven architecture to help our customers transform their businesses and be more real-time. And we've seen a lot of movement and uptake in EDA, whether it's transforming microservices, legacy applications, etc. Again, talk about the full context in the first episode. Go check it out. From a product point of view, we have a great platform, lots of different components that covers the whole spectrum of EDA and provides all kind of goodies for you to go from zero to hero and take care of all your concerns. With that in mind, let's dive in and talk about what we are excited about. So what are you excited about, Dave, these days?
Well, these days, honestly, it's all about distributed tracing. We have worked in the core team for months and months, hard at work on providing this platform that can show you what's going on within your event-driven network. And lots of great stuff. And on the cloud side too, Ali, here's some good stuff going on there.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, distributed tracing is top of mind. Aside from ski season that's coming up, and I'm super stoked about it. We live here in Canada, so we have to be excited about snow, right? Distributed tracing is amazing. I just love it. And, I think I was just looking at some stats by Gartner. And sounds like by 2025, like 70% of new cloud applications are going to adopt OpenTelemetry, which is kind of the technology we use at the core of distributed tracing. So I wanted to ask you, Ed, what is this thing all about? Why is it so big and it's growing like a mushroom?
Well, it's not surprising, right? As you build bigger and better distributed applications that are connected through various means, in our case, it's our event mesh, how do you know what's going on? How do you debug these big systems? How do you measure performance and really even analyze who gets what in this, for a PubSub network, producers push data in and consumers get data out, but there's a big decoupling there, which is the value of the network. But it's a black box if you don't have some way to monitor and visualize what's going on. So, I mean, distributed tracing gives you that. It gives you it in the OpenTelemetry framework in our case, which is a standard way of doing it for large corporations. So for us to add that functionality into our products and give it to customers in the forum that they're used to, or in the tools that they're used to, I think is a very valuable thing. And with Solace Cloud also taking what's in the lower level core products and enabling customers to use it easily. I mean, that's where I think some of the biggest strength is.
OpenTelemetry, apparently it's the second largest CNCF project, right? Like right after Kubernetes, which tells a lot about it, right? Like the fact that it has so much adoption in the cloud native community, it's amazing.
I would say like we plug into the OpenTelemetry collector so that we can get our data from our brokers and our APIs into the backends that store this stuff. And I was very impressed with how the project ran. Like we were very well received as we came in as a third-party contributor. We got very quick access to developers. When we developed our Go plugin, it was taken, reviewed, and brought into the project in a very professional and easy way. And I'd say it's not the case for all projects we've interacted with, and it's been a very good experience for that.
Yeah, it's being adopted even like across all the various big like observability and monitoring vendors such as Datadogs of the world. Like they're all like contributing, providing the exporter piece, which we are using certainly in our integration that we'll demo today. It's pretty cool stuff. And, you know, I think what is really nice is that now you have this standard protocol that we kind of plug in, and our customers, independent of who they want to pick as their observability framework, they're good to go. They're just plug in and they're off to the races, right?
And I think one thing that we do that is pretty powerful within the event mesh is that we give you the ability to record events in fairly coarse-grained or very, very fine-grained ways. So you're not restricted or stuck with just getting a huge fire hose of data and trying to build your backend to receive all of that. You can be much more selective if that's what you want. So you can have a production network that's up and running. It's super high rate. You don't really want to perturb it too much. And you can go in there and say, I'm interested in one particular topic, and you can get the telemetry events just for that as it transits through the entire network of brokers. And right up to where it came in and where it goes out on the APIs itself. And that provides a lot of value, I think, to getting that you know, from the operator's point of view, being able to just go in and dive in and do little tactical bits of debugging or performance monitoring where you want to do that.
Yeah, 100%. So double clicking on that a little bit, when it comes to events and having like end-to-end view, my understanding that we record who published it, when we enqueued the event, when was it delivered and who to, whether it was rejected or not, was it moved to dead message queue, all these stuff that are super valuable, right?
Oh, 100%. Now we're rolling that out over time. I'd say like our release coming up very soon.
And we are talking about forward-looking stuff here. So
yes.
This is not released, everyone.
But it's real, and you know the December release will have the API side. So when it comes in and goes out, it will have the receiving of the data into the broker. It gives an enormous amount of data for those messages about all of the metadata that comes in with them. So what we call the user properties. It has which client did publish it, which queues it went into, was it successfully enqueued, did it have an error on that enqueue? And very soon, well, in our development right now, we're working on the send side. So this will be, who did I send it to and when? When did they acknowledge the data? So at that point, when was the message removed from the queue? And by getting that data, you can see obviously the where the data goes, where these events go, but it also lets you look at the timing of them as well. So you can see how long it took to transit a queue, how long it took for that end application to receive and then acknowledge the data. And that allows you to find hotspots and stuff in your network. So, lots of different ways. I mean, certainly also if you try to deliver it many times and it gets rejected too many times, it gets put into a dead message queue. That's also good information. And the other ways of deleting it as well. I mean, all of that stuff is just an important thing to understand what's going on in your network.
So many possibilities and use cases. Speaking of microservices world, and people love to talk about it and call it a best practice, and it has gone beyond being a trendy technology. It's almost like de facto now when we build cloud native applications. But oh boy, it's hard. It's hard. Like we all take pride in building microservices, but you have these distributed systems and you run them like cattle as you should. Good luck debugging those things, right? Like, and I think this thing is huge, like being able to see how the messages and events are going between different microservices, being able to kind of even do things like performance analysis as the messages flow between them. I think it's pretty powerful. And all of that by doing very little work on the application side, as I understand it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, these are things that are turned on dynamically as you need them. And on the application side, I mean, it does depend a little bit on what ability you've built into that application to dynamically enable and disable certain aspects of this. But on the broker side, it is all just through our administrative interface. You can turn on or off different aspects of it. And again, add fine-grained or coarse-grained subscriptions to say what topics should be monitored. And I'll just say, like, on the, again, use case side, I mean, debugging is a huge case of this. You know, you can find out, did the data get delivered as you expected? Even almost from an auditing point of view, right? Where you've set up throughout your network a whole bunch of access control list restrictions. So make sure that only data that's meant for certain applications is delivered to those applications. And also which applications are allowed to publish certain topics.
Yeah.
So this will allow you to audit or verify that for certain data, where did it actually go? Is everything in place that you expected? And
so further to compliance and have a record of, like, did this actually happen, right?
Exactly. And you know, for sure, an operator of an event mesh will want to have the ability for, you know, if one of their customers, their applications that's running, calls up and says, I didn't get the data I expected, you can then monitor subsequent deliveries of that and see where it goes. You can prove, in fact, that they did get it and their application is at fault. And so there's lots of great reasons there to have this, and to not have it is really, you know, it's flying blind, basically.
100%, I agree. There's also data lineage and analytics application. And again, for those who are watching, if you're not close enough to Solace, we have this concept of smart topics and dynamic topics that is kind of one of our core differentiators. And with distributed tracing, you can actually see all of those topics and kind of do analysis on, you know, which are the most important topics in your network. And aside from the technical aspects of it, which of course we're all interested in, there's also business applications, right? Like, you know, which stores are performing better, as an example, if that's happened to be how you design your topic hierarchies.
Yeah, it's sort of funny because you build these big event networks that have all of this data moving around, and now you can actually make new events that are based on the events as they transit the network. So it's sort of a meta version of what's going on within your network that you can then use to further improve it. So it's, you know, there's so many great reasons, and it's the reason why, I mean, we're excited about it. But I mean, Ali and I last week spent time with our sales teams for all of the Americas, and this was on everyone's lips of saying, yeah, when will it be out there? When can we get it to our customers? Because so many people are interested in it.
Yeah,
and it's exciting. I mean, I love
waiting for it, basically.
Yeah, I love working on features where, you know, we're under pressure because it's so important for the customers to get into their hands that, you know, I mean, there's many times we work on features that have an applicability to one market or another. And this is not the case. This is applicable to every single customer that uses a product. So yeah, this is a pretty high level kind of architectural drawing or diagram of what tracing is. And even this is fairly simplified because it only has a single broker within the middle here. And you can imagine that that's, you know, middle black box, which is PubSub plus event broker, could be an entire mesh of event brokers. And so I think what I'll just talk about is walk through end to end what's going to happen. And so if you look on the left-hand side where it says context, and we have a microservice that's the publisher, that publisher, you know, in normal circumstances is going to push an event into the broker, and the subscriber will have a subscription that will match the topic of that event that comes in, and the event will get delivered to it. So that's how it normally works. That's what, you know, event-driven architecture will be doing. But what will tracing do on top of this? So what we're releasing coming up really soon is, first, in the API, the Solace API that we provide, it was built into the publisher, and you can turn on event or tracing inside there, and that tracing will actually send messages to the OpenTelemetry collector, which is shown at the bottom. And so you'll see a whole lot of information about how that application is running. And in fact, that application itself might also have OpenTelemetry built into it, and we'll be showing other things that relate to the message flow as it goes through. And what's nice is, in the next release, we'll have what we call a context propagation. And so that will be some information that's carried within the event that goes through the broker, some information that relates to OpenTelemetry. Specifically, it labels different spans and the parent of it. And what that allows us is the very bottom of this diagram, which is storing some of that data. It will link them all together. So you might have your application on the left-hand side here, actually starting the whole thing off, giving it into the API. The API will carry that trace ID all the way through and continue to link each span as it goes along to its parent. And so in this case, or again, like I said, the left-hand side will produce this trace information. It goes to the OpenTelemetry collector. The API will also publish that event into the broker. When the broker receives it, it will immediately put a trace event, and we put it into actually a guaranteed messaging queue within our broker. So this guarantees a much higher quality of delivery for this data to make sure we don't lose it. And so this message or this event comes into the broker. We produce a trace event, goes into that, it's labeled here distributed trace or DT, non-exclusive queue, goes into that queue, and then our plugin within the OpenTelemetry collector will subscribe to that queue and receive those events. And so again, in this case, as it goes through there, when it gets enqueued into the queue for normal delivery, it will produce this event into the distributed tracing queue. That goes down to the OpenTelemetry collector. Then when we deliver the message out to the subscriber on the right-hand side, we will put additional events into that distributed tracing non-exclusive queue. And there'll be one span per delivery to all of the end consumers. And there could be many consumers. And it will fill that up, and then our Solace receiver plugin within the OpenTelemetry collector will just keep on sucking them out. And if that collector goes down, it's okay. We just fill up this queue. When it comes back online, you'll get more. That OpenTelemetry collector could be horizontally scaled, and that distributed tracing non-exclusive queue is able to handle and load balance across multiple OpenTelemetry collectors. So if you have a very high rate of tracing events, you may need to horizontally scale the OpenTelemetry side of this, and that's quite possible within this environment. And so finally, when that event gets delivered to the subscriber, that subscriber, of course, has a Solace API inside it. It's able, again, if it's enabled, to send events down to the OpenTelemetry collector as well. And we'll see, if you go into the back end of the collector, a full-on trace from all these different distributed components within the network that are linked together and provide you with a great trace information end-to-end. And there's lots of timestamps and stuff in there. There is one caveat, of course, that if your applications aren't synced in time at all, those timestamps might not correlate that well. However, all of the events that come within the broker are obviously using the same time source. So you can see when events are received in the queue, when they exit the queue, how long it takes to acknowledge. All of that stuff is coming from the same time source. So they'll all be consistent amongst themselves. And that's where I think a lot of the performance debugging information comes from. And we'll be saying it in those end traces. So that's sort of the basics of this.
No, it's really cool. I love that we are actually embracing EDA, and we are using our own queues and EDA to ship these out to the collector or publish them to the collector. I guess maybe popular question that you might be receiving these days is, we are using queues, so I can imagine that we are decoupling the flow of data from what's happening from tracing point of view. But are there any performance implications?
Yeah, I mean, of course, doing more takes more time. That's a reality. Our first version of this does take away from the message performance of the broker. I think it's not surprising to hear that. I don't think initially people or customers will want to trace every single bit of data that goes through there. It is, it is producing a lot of data, and your backend service will have to store all of that data. But what we do provide you is various ways to be selective about what you trace. I don't think, initially anyway, or something for debugging purposes, that people want to receive all of the user properties for every single message that flows through there.
Yeah, plus
so yeah, there's
wildcard and all of that stuff to filter them out and kind of reduce that impact, right?
Exactly. So if you're doing a more selective selection of these events, there is negligible impact to the performance of the broker. And it is good, by using our own technology, our own guaranteed message technology, it does give us a much more reliable ability to deliver messages all the way down to the collector, because these are in a queue, they get acknowledged by the receiver within OpenTelemetry collector, and until they're acknowledged, they won't be removed from that queue within the broker. And so the loss of data there is not possible between the broker and the collector. Going from the collector to the back end, that depends on the back end and how it works. It's out of our scope at that point. So if messages are lost or events are lost there, it's up to those other third-party components. But it's a very strong and well thought out architecture that we do within the broker, and we put a lot of effort into making it as less of an impact as possible, as well as being as reliable as possible as it goes through there.
Very cool. Okay, so why don't we go see a demo? So the demo we're going to show is not necessarily focused on deep use cases of distributed tracing. We thought we kind of show you how easy it is to set it up, especially if you are a platform or a cloud customer. So Hamid, one of our senior engineers, will show you basically with just a few clicks. You set it up, you do the provisioning, and in the background, we'll kind of orchestrate the infrastructure. We stand up the collector as a sidecar container. All of that is transparent to you and is taken care of in minutes, basically. And then he basically shows that you're sending your trace data to Datadog. Super cool demo. Let's go watch that and come back.
So I'm going to demo how we can easily configure and deploy distributed tracing using Solace Cloud. And I'm going to demo a simple scenario how distributed tracing helps with visibility. But before, I'm going to go through a few slides to show how Solace Cloud achieves configuration and deployment of the collector. We create a tracing profile in Solace Cloud, which includes the tracing destination configuration saved in the DB. Solace Cloud then enables distributed tracing on the broker by installing the product key. Then we create a telemetry profile on the broker. Customer creates a telemetry profile on the broker either through the PubSub Lab Manager UI or through the CLI. And then by entering the telemetry profile name, we create a telemetry profile in DB, which includes the profile name and the required client username to connect to the collector. And using this configuration from a telemetry profile and the tracing profile, we deploy the collector through the mission control agent. So Solace Cloud puts together all these configurations and deploys the collector. And then I'm going to demo by sending a message to the broker and showing the trace, the propagation of the trace. I have 3 collectors that are bridged together. I've already set up this distributed tracing collector for these 2 services. I'm going to demo how to set it up for this service. I already created a tracing profile, which is the tracing destination. So all the traces are going to end up in this destination, which is a Datadog in this case. Then I'm going to go and enable tracing at the service level for my service. Now I have to go to broker and create a telemetry profile there. I'm going to use PubSub Plus Manager UI and create a telemetry profile on the broker. I'm going to call it test, enable receiver and trace. Then I'm going to create a filter for this profile. And I'm going to enable it and create a subscription for this filter, which includes which topics you're going to trace. I'm going to say all topics. And then I'm going to let the collector connect to this, to the telemetry queue by allowing this connection. Now I'm going to configure and deploy the tracing profile, the collector, distributed tracing collector, by entering the telemetry profile that I just created on the broker. And this is the tracing profile or tracing destination that traces are going to end up, which I already created and selected here. It's going to take a few seconds. Now the collector is active. I'm going to go back to my first service, and I have the PubSub Plus Manager here. I'm going to use the try me to send a message to this collector. I need the credentials. I'm going to grab them from the UI to be able to connect to the broker so that I can send a message. And it ought to be a persistent message. So I'm going to send a few messages to this broker. And these messages should appear here in a few seconds. Like traces that are generated for these messages by the broker are going to appear here. If I click on one of these traces and I go here, and you can see that these three are the three services that are bridged together, and I send a service to service one, and it is visible how my message propagated into this system going through one broker to another one. So this is a simple scenario how distributed tracing can help with the visibility of your message in the system.
So, I mean, amazing demo. I think one of the things I want to call out back to one of our core capabilities is you saw that he had 3 brokers. In this particular demo, all those brokers were in one cloud provider, one region. But imagine a scenario that you have a broker sitting in a data center on-prem, 3 different cloud providers, and you can trace all this data between all of those. I think it's just huge.
Yeah, very impressive.
Very impressive. Okay, so I think that's good on distributed tracing. I think, Ed, you had a few other topics you want to touch on.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention some of our, I call them ease of use features that we've been adding recently, and sometimes they don't get the headline announcements that other features might, but these are all core things that just make anyone using our technology easier to use. First one up, it's being, we build a broker that's native to its operating environment, and we're now just releasing ARM support for our broker, which is big. I mean, ARM is obviously becoming more and more of a notable architecture within both cloud and personal usage. And so our first thrust was to make sure it worked on M1 Max and M2 Max, so that people getting new MacBooks can run our broker natively on it. And so that's coming out very soon in the next few weeks. We also were focused on AWS because they have ARM-based instances as well. So that will come out at the
What
same
is it
time.
called? Graviton or something? I'm sure people
Graviton.
like
Yeah.
they want to use that for cost saving purposes and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I think it will remain to be seen how much of a cost savings. When I was looking at it, it looks, the names are kind of the same, like large, and it's half the price, but they don't have as many cores when you actually look in depth. But in any case, we want to make sure that we can support people where they want to run these brokers. The next thing I wanted to mention was we're working right now on, and we'll soon be releasing a Terraform provider for usage of our brokers. So, I mean, I think anyone who runs big infrastructure understands the value of infrastructure as code and declarative configuration. And, this has been, I'd say, a bit of a weakness for the broker before now. We have a very rich API that lets you set stuff up, but you're kind of on your own to provide your own tooling to enable a declarative style of configuration management. And so the Terraform provider is our first step, I'd say, towards adding more support into various frameworks to allow for declarative style of configuration. So I was playing with that today. It's definitely a big step up from just going in and manually configuring things just as a simple user.
You can configure with this app.
Pardon me?
What kind of stuff you can configure with the Terraform?
So, I mean, it will be rolled out over time, of course, but the first big things, of course, are queues and users. There's a lot of different configuration items within queues, and people or customers will set those up through various different tooling right now. And Terraform is a great way to do it. Just go in, change your configuration, look at it, review it. You can check it into GitHub or whatever, and then apply it. And the applying goes smoothly and nicely. Eventually, and probably not that long from now, it will cover everything that we do through our management API. So really, the generation of the provider will be auto-generated from our REST Swagger spec. And we'll be adding various modules as well to make it easier to configure some of these more complex objects. Like if you're doing an integration through our RDP to a cloud native service, you have to set up a queue and an RDP and a few different bits and pieces. Well, a module will be able to set all of that up for you in a fairly straightforward way. So I'm very excited about that. I think it'll be great for customers that use Terraform. It'll be great for us actually internally to enable our own developers to use a more declarative style when operating with brokers. Another thing I want to mention is partition queues. I touched on it a little bit in that architecture diagram that we use to what's called a non-exclusive queue. So that's a queue that allows horizontally scaling of your end applications to all pull from the same queue. But right now we require that you use topics if you need to segregate a stream that goes to just one group or one single end instance of a horizontally scaled group for an application. And partition queues does it with partition keys. So you can put a key in a message. People who are used to Kafka would understand this. The message comes in, it has a certain topic, but that key plays a role in deciding which partition it goes into. So you can view one of our queues being really a whole bunch of individual small queues where the key will choose which one of those it goes into. It's quite dynamic. You can add and remove consumers as you want. They will rebalance appropriately. But one of the big things I think that is good about our implementation in our broker is that you can have multiple partition queues all receiving the same topic. And so if you have multiple end applications, and each application group wants to have a different number of partitions, some receive or do more processing, some do less or whatever, you can do that. You aren't all stuck with the same number of partitions for one particular topic. So I think that's really good. It's finished development now as a test. I'm excited to see that released because it'll just be another story of our different queue operating modes from exclusive, non-exclusive, and now partitioned, which will, I think, really make it easier to use the product.
That's very cool. I have like a million questions for you, which I'm going to hold back because we promised to keep this one short.
Yeah. So lots of good stuff there. Last one I just wanted to mention is our continued journey towards having easy deployment of our container. And it wasn't that long ago, a few months ago, we released rootless Podman support. So previously you could use Podman, but you still needed elevated permissions to use it. And now you can use it as a normal user running Podman within a Linux environment. You can start up our container, manage it entirely from within a non-privileged space. So I think for some of our customers it's mostly for development purposes. I'd say that this is an issue, but you want to make it as easy as possible to just quickly download a container and run it up anywhere that you have Podman support.
Yeah.
So that was it for my sort of ease of use things that I wanted to mention here.
Very cool.
And, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, the only other thing I want to highlight, and we are talking about forward-looking stuff a little bit here, but we just launched Event Portal 2.0 lifecycle management capabilities. So there's a ton of content. It's GA. Go check it out. And next, we're going to focus on runtime discovery for Kafka and Solace. So we'll probably in our next session talk about that and a little bit go deeper into that. But ton of good stuff happening. And last but not least, if you are not part of our community, go join solace.community. Ton of great content, conversations, Q&A, and I think that's it for today. Anything else for you, Ed?
No, not really. Good chatting with you, Ali, again.
Yeah.
And definitely anyone that's watching this, give us feedback. Tell us what you like and what you don't like. This is an evolving show that we're putting together here, and we wanted to make it valuable for anyone that spends the time to watch it. So 100%. Thank you for getting this far.
Awesome. Take care. Have a good afternoon, Ed.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye, Ali.